Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flint Community Webinar, your community resource. We've got a wonderful slate of expertise for you today, and I'm so excited to get into it. But first, it's important for us to recognize that it's Men's Health Month. So shout out to all the men out there. Make sure you're connecting with your primary care doc. Make sure you're getting on the webinar so we can bring that trusted information to you. And a special shout out to all the fathers this weekend. Happy Father's Day to my dad, who's awesome, and happy Father's Day to Naima and Rona's dad, who's also awesome. So happy Father's Day to all the wonderful fathers out there. We're going to go ahead and get into our day today that includes a lot of really wonderful expertise. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about lead, understanding exposure and testing, and Dr. Brittany Taylor is going to tell us a little bit about what that means and health risks of lead. We've got a bunch of great community resources and people who are going to talk about resources in the community. We've got Heather Schurter here to talk about the Mid-Michigan Community Health Access Program, along with Janet Poole, who's going to do some of that work as well. We've got Imani Williams, who's going to talk about the Lead Fund Project with MDHHS, and we've got Chad Rhodes, who's going to talk to us a little bit about lead services. So please stay tuned. We've got wonderful expertise. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're going to start a little bit with Dr. Taylor, who's always willing to bring her expertise to the table. So shout out to Dr. Taylor.
Thank you so much for having me. So glad to be back. So I was going to put together some slides, but I didn't want to get everyone really bored right from the beginning, talking about lead toxicity and different things like that. So I just kind of wanted to give kind of like a brief overview, kind of about some of the limitations around lead testing, just to kind of frame the discussion kind of going forward, as well as the fact that lead toxicity and lead poisoning kind of being in a spectrum of things are often asymptomatic, meaning that there is absolutely no symptoms associated with it. And only really at the highest levels of toxicity are there actual symptoms associated with it. So rather than talking about all of the random little things that you can get, I feel like it's most important that we talk about this, particularly in our most vulnerable population, which we do our lead testing in, which is usually at age 1 and 2 years old. So with that, we actually just recently passed a new state law. I know MDHHS is working really hard at solidifying when we are going to be doing our lead testing. But the goal of the law is that we are probably going to be testing most individuals, most kids at the age of 1 and 2 for lead. And typically that test is something called a capillary blood test. So that's when they prick the finger of a kid and they actually test that blood for lead in the blood sample. And so that is at the end of kind of the blood flow. And so sometimes that has the lowest levels of lead in that, just because of where it is kind of in the circulation. Oftentimes that's kind of our first initial test or our screening test. So it's the one that's going to capture the most during that time. If that level ends up being at a certain point that's higher, what we do is typically we confirm that with a venous test. So that's something that you have to go get a phlebotomist. So it's a formal blood draw kind of out of the arm. We acknowledge that if we have a phlebotomist in my clinic, and I don't know how she does it every day, doing blood tests on 1 and 2 year olds who definitely don't like to get lead screened. No. So that's why, yeah. So it is an experience. That woman is an angel, and so she is amazing. So that's why usually we do a venous test. I think it's really important with it, because oftentimes you might get something scary initially when it comes to a capillary test or an initial venous test. And we actually, one of our first steps at usually our low lead levels is to actually repeat that in 2 weeks. So it's very oftentimes that you'll hear something very scary from your healthcare provider, that your lead level in your child was elevated. And our first step is actually to repeat that in several weeks, just because there's so much variability in that. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of why children are not a little bit, but a lot bit more sensitive to the effects of lead, even at those low levels that we're typically kind of seeing most commonly, because of a couple different physiologic or changes that actually are just in the body of a younger person that makes them more sensitive to that. The biggest thing is that actually the gut or the intestines in folks under the age of 6 years old actually absorb lead from the environment. So it's something that they've eaten or taken in much more effectively than in an adult. So there's some numbers around like 60% of the lead that a 1 or 2 year old will see in their GI tract. So something that they've eaten, usually it's from dust or paint chips, etc., will be absorbed. As opposed to me, if I ate the same paint chip, which I don't suggest for anyone, I will only absorb about 1%. So a significantly different thing. And that's inherent in the way that the GI tract works in kids. They absorb a lot more in terms of all of the nutrients, and it has trouble differentiating between lead, which is not a nutrient, and a lot of other metals, which are actually important for us. Iron being one of them, calcium another one, and so it can actually mimic that, and so the body will take it up. And the body is very good at storing it. So it typically will store it in bones, because again, you need a lot of calcium in your bones. And unfortunately, the body does not always recognize that lead and calcium are different because it looks similar to it. And so you can actually store it in your bones. And so it kind of can be a reservoir or a source for that lead toxicity over a long time. We typically only see lead in the blood, which is the one that we test, for about a month or so after the exposure. So again, limits our testing, and sometimes why we'll actually retest in a couple weeks, because there might have been some very low level exposure that happened due to a certain exposure. And that we don't see that again. And it could have just been a blip or kind of a natural kind of occurrence in the lab. Another reason that children are really sensitive is something called the blood-brain barrier. So your brain needs the most blood and oxygen, and it's the most demanding organ in your whole entire body. And that makes a lot of sense. It does so much for you. But it is very demanding, and it is growing a huge amount within the first year, and even in the first couple of years of life. It is like the only part of the body that doubles like in size every couple months when you're young. I feel like that's why kids always look like they're so top heavy, because their brain is just so much bigger than the rest of their body, and kind of reflects that the brain is growing so much and so fast during this time that they actually make that connection between the blood, which transports all of the necessary ingredients to good, strong brains, to the brain. And the brain usually protects itself with this very, very tough barrier that makes sure that bad things don't get in, only the good stuff gets in. However, in the first couple of years of life, because of those nutritional demands of the brain, you actually it ends up being a little bit leakier. And that's by intention. It needs to get so much that it just can't have this very, very tight regulation that we as adults have. And that's one of the reasons also that kids are much more sensitive to certain infections when they're very young as well. And thus why a lot of the things that we actually immunize for at 2, 4, and 6 months of life are actually things that cause significant brain infections. And those kids are more sensitive to them because of that change, that leakiness of that blood-brain barrier. Unfortunately, lead is also able to take advantage of that leakiness, and so can penetrate into the brain much more than an adult who may see that, and thus leads to a lot of the long-term mild changes in cognition, particularly in levels of IQ that we see in folks, in kids who do have lead toxicity during that time. And so that is why it's so important for us to test and to look at this stuff, because oftentimes those changes, those negative impacts of the lead in the blood won't be seen for many years down the line. And again, kind of going back to the fact that acute lead is usually completely asymptomatic. Only in very, very high doses, and that's very difficult to get. That's someone who accidentally ate like a lead pellet or something like that. Are you going to have very severe symptoms? Most of the time, you're going to be asymptomatic. Sometimes you can be a little crankier, maybe a little bit of constipation. Sometimes you can have some skin changes as well. But again, I think the biggest thing is that in all populations, all ages, is that most of the time lead is something that you don't have any symptoms for. And that is why we do something called screening. And that is why we are very cognizant of that. So just wanted to frame the discussion going forward for the rest of the awesome experts who are here. And I hope that kind of helps kind of start us off.
Amazing. It's so interesting because even as I listen to you, right, even with my physician hat on, I'm like, yeah, that all makes sense, right? I'm remembering all of this stuff. And I think what you've said is so important because even as physicians, we get so into practice and what we do and we screen, and that is just what we do. But this is a really helpful reminder of why, right? Even that reminder of kids need all of the nutrients they can get because they don't have big, huge stomachs like all of us do. And so they have to be kind of efficient with how they're getting their nutrients. And they are efficient, but they're just not specific, right? They don't just, they're
not discerning.
Yes. They're not discerning and they don't really discriminate. So those are things that we need to be aware of. And it's super helpful for you to give us that context. I want to bring the rest of our teams up a little bit to talk a little bit about some of the screening resources that are available. So as we bring up Heather, and I know we're moving our spotlights around. So I know we've got Janet Poole-Little and Heather Schurter to talk a little bit about our chat program. We're going to go ahead. I'll spotlight you so that you can. All right.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Janet and I are here with the Mid-Michigan Chat Program. We are nurse case managers, and we work with any child that's been identified with a elevated blood lead level in Genesee County. We would go out to the home. We try to help the family figure out where the lead might be coming from, get them connected to a program. Can you hear me okay? Or are you getting a little feedback?
Nope.
Okay.
A tiny bit, but we can hear you quite well.
Okay, so that's what Janet and I do. Today we want to just give you some information about potential sources of lead in the home, help families understand where lead could be coming from in their environment and could be affecting their child. We also work a lot with prevention. If we can prevent lead poisoning from happening, that's 100% always best. So we work with a lot of families if they have concerns about lead hazards in their home to get them connected to programs to get their home tested. And I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Janet and she can get us started. And we do have some slides to share with you.
Great. Thanks, Janet. Thanks, Heather. All right. We can see those great.
All right. You can hear me okay?
A little low, but I think okay. Mostly.
I'll speak up.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. We're coming.
No worries.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about how do we get lead poisoning. It can be from ingestion, where we're either swallowing lead dust, paint, chips, water, or any object that might contain lead, such as a piece of jewelry. Or you can get lead poisoning by inhalation. So that's where we will breathe in lead particles from burning lead-containing materials, doing home updates, secondhand smoke, or certain hobbies, such as glass making. Certain job hazards can cause us to be, to breathe in those particles. Common sources of lead are paint. So any home that was built before 1978 could be exposing us to lead. So you might have paint that's peeling on walls, trims, or cabinets. It can be in the windows. And we, especially inside the homes, you see a lot of peeling paint inside the window sills. Floors can expose us. It could have lead in it, and it could also be found in the soil outside. Lead can be found in water. So when the lead pipes and lead faucets can expose us as that water flows through there. In Michigan, homes that were built before 1978 were painted with lead paint. The older the home, the more lead it may possibly have. Lead paint and lead dust are main causes of lead poisoning. And over time, as the paint begins to chip or peel from opening and closing doors or cabinets, so it can create a dust that can settle on surfaces. And when those surfaces are exposed to weather, it can deteriorate faster, and you cannot see lead. And so there are a lot of different sources of lead poisoning, how we can be exposed to lead, and we might be surprised by some of them. And there's a long list. I'm not going to read them all to you, but I did want to really point out certain things like bullet shrapnel or fragments. So if someone has been shot and they still have those bullet fragments, they may always test with a high lead level. Certain jobs like manufacturing or construction, plumbing, are jobs, just a few of the jobs that could expose us to lead. And then when we look at, a lot of people like to go to the dollar stores, and you're buying dishes or toys, those really colorful little plastic toys or any kind of toys that you might get out of the dollar store. Any items that are shipped from overseas could possibly be exposing us to lead. Also, there's mini blinds. So you might go and buy some inexpensive mini blinds just to cover your window. You want to be really careful because those could contain lead. Certain makeup, such as kohl eyeliner and henna, and also spices that a lot of people use, turmeric and cinnamon, could have lead in them. And again, shooting guns, hunting, fishing could all expose us to lead. Thank you.
Something important to think about is renovating in your home. You don't want to just start cutting. If your home's built before 1978, you really don't want to start just disturbing those surfaces, because that could possibly disperse a lot of lead dust, those minute pieces of paint throughout the home. So you don't want to start sanding those surfaces or cutting into the drywall, and you want to really protect yourself and your children. The EPA has a great site called Renovate Right. There's a lot of great and helpful information on there about renovating in the home. You really want to try to find a lead certified contractor if possible, and you really want to get your home tested for lead. You really want to know what's in that home before you would do anything. There's some great programs. I know there's some people here from those programs that are going to talk a little bit more about what's available to have your home tested, so you'll know what's in it and possibly abated. For any home that we're concerned about lead hazards, we would recommend lead safe cleaning techniques. So this is going to be cleaning techniques that might help remove that like dust off the floor, those paint chips off the floor. You know, anywhere your child is potentially coming into contact with lead dust or paint chips, you want to use disposable materials. You want to go one room at a time, because what you don't want to do is like mop in one room and then go to the next room. If there was maybe lead dust in that one room, you don't want to spread it to the next room if possible. You want to use wet cleaning materials. That's always preferred. So you want to, you know, a spray cleaner and some paper towel. Swiffer mop pads are great. And like I said, one room at a time, you want to clean that. You want to bag it up and dispose of it. And I know Dr. Taylor was touching on this, you know, that children are very high risk for lead poisoning. Really the only way to know if your child has lead poisoning is to get them tested, because like she mentioned, it is, you know, there's potentially no symptoms. And then children have a lot of hand-mouth behaviors, so that does put them at higher risk. They're crawling on the floor, they put their hands in their mouth, they put their toys in their mouths. So you want to make sure, if you're concerned about lead in your home, that you're, you know, making sure you're cleaning their hands frequently. You're doing that especially before they eat. You're cleaning items that they're coming into contact with and they're putting in their mouths frequently. And lead tastes sweet. So it's kind of like this perfect storm, unfortunately, that, there's nothing negative, no negative like feedback for a child to put a lead paint chip in their mouth because it actually tastes good. So it is kind of like this perfect storm as far as children. The good news is lead poisoning is preventable. You want to make sure that your home is lead safe. You want to get your child tested for lead, and you want to get your home tested for lead. And really important, because there are parameters of when children get tested, you want to make sure that if you move to a new environment in between, like let's say your child gets tested at 12 months, and now you move to a new environment at 18 months, and maybe that environment has issues like these pictures with shipping and peeling paint, you want to make sure you let your doctor know, because your doctor may then want to retest your child because they're getting some potential exposure they weren't getting before. These are some of the common things that we see when we go to homes. This is a lot of porches. Porches come in contact with the weather. We see a lot of, paint in poor condition like this because that paint's going to deteriorate faster, and that's going to potentially create a lead hazard that your child's going to come in contact with. Same thing with windows. Wood framed painted windows that are original to the home often test very, very high for lead, and especially like those window troughs. So if you have windows that look like this, you don't want to fan in those windows and potentially blow all that lead dust into the house. You want to make sure you get your home tested so you know that you're not potentially creating an exposure. We do have some helpful websites. I'm going to add these to the chat and share these with everyone. And if there's questions, I'm sure we can help answer those. Thank you so much.
This has been so amazing and such good education and resources. And I want to bring Michael Carpenter from the City of Flint led programs, and then get into Imani and Chad a little bit later to talk about some MDHHS services. But when we've all kind of talked a little bit, I want to bring us all together to kind of think about where the intersection is, as Dr. Taylor talks about how kids are at particular risk, and some of the work that she's been doing to think about when we're testing, sort of how that dovetails with the stuff that you all are seeing in terms of exposures, etc. So love to get Michael up here. Thank you so much, Heather and Janet.
Hello. How you doing? This is Mike Carpenter with the City of Flint Lead-Based Paint Hazard Control Program. I'm sorry that my video is out. I'm kind of under the weather, so.
Oh, goodness.
But I was still gonna make this meeting, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. That is dedication. We thank you for being here and for being willing to share your expertise with us, even though you're sick. And it's Men's Health Month, so as soon as you're done, please go take care of yourself.
I greatly appreciate that. So I do have a few slides to go through real quickly. Just a brief overview of what I do behind the scenes. Lead program. I do scope of works as a SOW, clearances, ongoing maintenance, and project monitoring. So what we do is we look up for qualified contractors. Anybody just cannot do this work. Can you see my screen?
I was just trying to see if I had changed views. I can't see your slides. Can everyone else?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, perfect. Oh yeah, Mike, well, not great, but we can't. I don't know if you. There we go. Perfect.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, so with the contractor pool, that's where we having a lot of our problems is with the contractor pool, which we, me and Ty Loggins from MDHHS, we are actually trying to change that, get a lot of people certified and get a license so they can actually start working on these homes in our Genesee County. So right now we are trying to find anybody that has any background with construction. That's always best, but we also are taking in students that just wants to learn, or homeowners that just want to learn more about lead. We do have a class that's going on now. We are accepting applications. The class, let me double check. Get off false information 1 moment. Okay, so we do have the class for Flint. It's not at Michigan Works. It would be at the People's Church. We are taking classes. I mean, we are taking applications now. Class will start next month on the 8th. It'll start on the 8th through the 12th. That's for the supervisor class, and then for the worker class, we're trying to get it for the 1st through the 4th. And the difference between a worker and a supervisor is, again, a worker is just somebody that has basic or no knowledge of lead that wants to learn anything, and a supervisor is just somebody that has a construction background that can see lead on a painted surface and actually kind of identify it.
Sure.
Or actually knows how to put in windows, drywall,
Sure.
etc. All right. All right. So moving on. So with our program, we get $30,000 to fix up any home with lead. That's kind of our limit, but we can get approval for that limit. So that's what this is talking about with $30,000 my GTR. 10 grand, we get 10 grand to fix up any house. And that may be with a furnace or roof, anything dealing with a home that is causing health problems or may cause any health conditions, health problems in the future. We did just complete one home where we did do a complete roof tear down. We tore down a complete roof and put in a new one. She did have lead in her front door and she had lead on her front porch. All of that got replaced, but in order to keep the house good, we had to get the roof replaced, and having this $10,000 limit actually helped out. It was $5,000 and it was $15,000. We just got it increased 2 months ago. All right, so my job responsibilities is basically monitoring each contractor and each job site, making sure that they are keeping up with all the practices and procedures, making sure that the homeowner is not, or any other resident is coming into the property while the work is being done, and making sure that the waste is being handled properly. It's proper procedures on how you're supposed to actually package and throw away any lead hazards. You can't just throw it in a regular dumpster. The dumpster has to be lined out with plastic, and it has to be disposed of properly, different from any other waste that may be on the job site. So documentation, we make sure that we have all documentation on site. For the contractor, it's an occupant protection plan that needs to be posted. Revenue rights needs to be posted, and the contractor's information needs to be posted on site. So once we get all of our LIRs conducted and our LIR done, we do have a bidding process where we do look out for potential firms that went through the whole process to come and bid on these jobs. That may take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. It just depends on how fast we can get through with city council. City council has to approve every dollar amount that has to go through. We relocate our residents depending on the severity of the houses. Sometimes we do put them in a hotel. We try to recommend them going to go stay with a family member or a partner somewhere else, a friend, a family. But if not, then we try to accommodate them with room and board at a few different hotels that we have partnerships with the city of Flint, and we see that actually starting to work out. Project monitoring checklist. So we also provide the homeowner with the lyric, the scope of work, and the clearest results. We provide the homeowner with an ongoing monitoring plan. And then we also conduct a evaluation. Normally we do that with chat. After everything is done, we have them call and verify how was the experience. Did we miss anything, or couldn't things be done better? And this is an example of that form, ongoing monitoring. These are the current standards as of right now. I believe we raised the standards. Windows 4, portraits is 4. So basically all this is saying is that the action level is the levels on when we have to act once we get our results back from our inspector. The PSI is my inspector. So once we get our results back from our inspector, and let us know what these action levels is. Anything at an action level has to be worked on. So that's what goes in the scope of work. All right. Real quick, I'm sorry, got some photos. So real quick of a job that we just completed of a roof tear down. Front door was lead, so we replaced the front door. The front porch was also lead, so we got that also taken care of for her. Let me see. We gave her a new roof, new front door, and then we also painted the front porch to cover up the lead hazard. She also had lead hazards on the front, in her front soil, and her side of the house came up with high council lead. So we put down new dirt. And to be qualified for this program, you can also get an application. It's hard to see. On our website at the City of Flint. Lead-based tank hazard control. Click here to see how you qualify, download the application. It also has our information up here. You want to get in contact with us. Then it's a income verification chart down here that just shows the income and what you need to be to qualify for our program. And then over here on the right hand side, you can also click these buttons to download the application. Prepare your home, document participation expectations, what we expect from you from the program.
Michael, can you go back to the income verification? So if we're looking at that chart, just to go through it, if you are a family of 2 with 2 kids, so you have 4 persons in your family, and then there are these income limits. Do those income limits, what do they are they limits for the amount of services that can be provided, or?
No, this is just basically your income of the household. So it depends on how many people is in the family. And then we need everybody that's 18 or older to present that they're working to present their income, and it just bases off of it's not a limit on how much you can get, because everybody supposedly gets the same amount. It just depends on how much work is needed in your home.
Got it. Okay.
So they're not how much money you bring in doesn't dictate how much money you get. No.
This is super helpful, and it's a really nice dovetail to the information provided by Janet and Heather. and it gives us context for, okay, if you find yourself in a scenario where you think you might need lead abatement, here's a resource for you to think about as you might need to update your house or have these procedures done in a safe and meaningful way. Michael, please take care of yourself. Thank you so much for being here. If you are able to hang out for more of the discussion, then great, but I don't want to keep you too much, and we really do appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to make sure people know?
No, just if anybody wants or needs help with the application process, I know that I probably was jumping around a lot. There's a lot to discuss with the lead situation, and I'm here to help. Again, just to piggyback on that, child has to be in the home under the age of 6. It has to be pre-1978, and you have to meet these income guidelines. If you meet these requirements, then come fill out an application. You can also get an application in person at City Hall. You can just ask for me, Mike Carpenter. Or I also do house calls. So if you need me to come drop one off for you because you're disabled or you can't get around, I drop them off, and I can also pick up documentation to further this program. Wherever you need me, I'm available.
Michael, that's amazing. I do have one question for you. And this question is, were any of the repaired homes located near highways in Flint? The homes near highways should not have high levels of lead since gasoline exhaust should be lead free. Do you have any insight into that?
No, I'm definitely finna look into that now to see did we have homes next to the highway, and was it higher counts of lead on the outside of the home? So no, I haven't made that correlation yet, but I'm definitely finna to now.
Yeah, this is the beauty of the webinar, right? Is we learn stuff, we take stuff back to our community partners, we think about new problems. So shout out to our panelists for all their wonderful questions and helping us think about what's important for us to be thinking about in the community and how we can meet the needs. We appreciate it. Hey, Michael, take good care of yourself. If you can hang out, that'd be amazing. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you guys.
Yes. I'm gonna pivot a little bit, and we're gonna talk to MDHHS about their lead fund program. Shout out to Amani and Chad for being here. Thank you so much. And Chad, you had a little bit of information from the last talk, and so I wanna, any expertise that you wanna provide as a piggyback to what we were hearing, I'd love to hear it.
No, we also have our own HUD grant that we facilitate through MDHHS. And so the income limits with to qualify for a HUD funded project, you have to be under 80% of the AMI. And so in Flint, it looked like that AMI for like a 4-person household was around 60,000. And so if your household income was under that, then you would qualify for the program. And the same goes for any of the localities that we facilitate HUD grants in as well. So we have to look at AMI in a bunch of different cities where we facilitate our HUD grant at, to ensure that the household income falls under that 80% AMI.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I will let MDHHS take over.
Okay, I'll start.
I think Amani, yeah, you were first
Yeah,
on the,
I think I'm first.
schedule, so you go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Imani Williams. I am the project manager for the Lead Poisoning Prevention Fund, and I'm excited to share more about our program and ways that you guys can get connected. So the Lead Poisoning Prevention Fund offers loans to homeowners and rental property owners who want to abate their property and seeking to operate in legal framework of local, state, and federal regulations. We work closely with Michigan Saves to provide fixed interest rates and affordable loan terms through our statewide network of community credit union partnerships. We do service all of Michigan, but we focus on areas such as Detroit, Grand Rapids, Benton Harbor, Flint, and rural communities. We are Michigan's only above income support for property owners and families, and we're really super excited about that. We look at it as an opportunity to support not only those who are also needed, but those who might not be eligible for a traditional free abatement program. So our goal is simple: it's increase funding access to lend support to property owners and families who aren't eligible. So our current incentives, we're super excited about our 50/50 cost sharing incentive. This incentive was launched in February of this year, and basically it cuts the total project cost by 50%. So if the project cost is $20,000, the homeowner is, or a property owner is only responsible for $10,000 of that cost. We're hoping to have this really taken in by a lot of our homeowners and property owners across Michigan, just because we know that this is an issue that most people have when it comes to abatement. It's super costly. So this incentive would be able to reduce that cost for you. We also offer to all customers, regardless if you get approved for a loan or denied for a loan, a free environmental investigation. We offer prioritization of lead hazards. Our program does not mandate all hazards be addressed at once. And so if a scope of work is written up and there are several hazards, but you want to only focus on the most severe hazards, we have a field technician that is able to walk you through that scope of work, identify those severe hazards into the least severe hazards, and you're able to move forward with applying for a loan with that amount for the cost of work. And like I mentioned, we have different approaches to remediate hazards. So interim control level, which need maintenance, but they are less costly, as well as full abatement, and then a combination of both. And then our interest rates are very low compared to other private loan options. And we currently use the state interest rates, which is 3.99 to 7% at this time. Eligibility. So homeowners, we do require a minimum credit score of 600 and above, so landlords and rental property owners. And applying for the lead fund loan is easy. It's on our website. You'll see it here. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes. You get your determination rather quickly after that. Either approved, denied, or need review, which just means maybe some documents need to be submitted. A part of our process is just to sign a letter of intent. We call it a LOI, which basically says, yes, I want to move forward with the lead fund. I want to get the environmental investigation to see if I'm able to apply for a loan. Once we have that letter of intent, we get that investigation scheduled. Once it's completed, you have that report. So you'll receive a report as well. And you'll be able to talk through that with our field technician to say like, hey, if you don't understand some language or you don't understand maybe the majority of the report, that field technician will be able to go through the report with you, identify hazards with you to be able to say, hey, these are more severe and these are less severe. Once that scope of work is written up, that total amount is reduced by 50%, and that is the amount that you would apply for the loan for. And you would work with lead certified contractors to determine the scope of work and apply for the loan via website. So that is our process. It's super simple. I'm super excited to bring this to everyone. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Amani, thank you so much for that. Those are amazing resources. I'm gonna go ahead and Chad is here with us too.
Alrighty, let me get my screen up. I have a couple slides to share as well. And so that was the Lead Poison Prevention Fund, which is the loan program. And then earlier you heard about a HUD-funded program within the city of Flint. What I'm going to speak about, sorry, my name is Chad Rhodes. I'm the acting lead services section manager at this time. So what I'm going to talk about mostly is the Lead Safe Home program that we facilitate in Flint, and it's based upon Medicaid funding and Medicaid eligibility. And so it is the qualifications to for this program are to be have a child under the age of 19 on active Medicaid and living in the household, or a pregnant person that's on Medicaid living in the household. And so this goes for the entire city of Flint. The good thing about our program, it does not, there's no income limit, because if you are on Medicaid, you likely fall underneath an income limit, anything that we would establish anyway. And then also there's no maximum on this program as well. And so that is one of the good things that We try and get people qualified for this program more often than not because of that. There's not a cap per se on this program. The other good thing about the Medicaid sponsored program in the city of Flint is that they ask us to use more abatement techniques than interim controls. And so what you get with more abatement techniques is a more permanent solution to lead within the house. And so that's obviously a key thing for not being re-exposed to lead within the domicile. And then also we test water within the home as well. And we replace any faucets that were installed pre-2014 because pre-2014 there is a larger amount of allowable lead in what we call the wetted surface inside of a fixture. And so any part of the fixture that touches water is considered to be a wetted surface. Before 2014, around 5% of the wetted surface was allowed to contain, the wetted surface was allowed to contain up to 5% lead. After 2014, they tried to eliminate it. They reduced it to 0.25%, I believe. And so any fixture that was installed pre-2014, we go in there, we replace that too. If any of the water tests that we take yield anything that's over 15 parts per billion, we'll do a further investigation into the plumbing system and see if there's any parts of the plumbing that we need to replace as well. Coming up in the future is our Get Ahead of Lead program, which is another program that is a statewide initiative. It involves, in Flint specifically, I believe it involves what we call the faucet and filter safety net community. And so each person that applies for this faucet and filter safety net community, again, it has to be Medicaid enrolled households. They will receive education. They will receive a plumbing, like a plumbing assessment at their home. And then they also will receive a filter as well as one new faucet. We try and isolate that faucet to the single largest point of consumption within the household. So generally speaking, it's the kitchen faucet. I went through mostly everything here. Again, just with the Lead Safe Home program in our Medicaid sponsored program, it's been in place since January of 2017. So we have completed many, many hundreds of households in Flint at this point, and we have many, many hundreds of households that are still waiting to be completed. As I believe Michael maybe alluded to, or someone had spoken about workforce. That's always the problem, but we are actively engaging workforce development to try and get new contractors all the time. We are working, actually now we're working with Home Depot to be able to give them large chunks of homes. So, we're talking 40 and 50, maybe up to 60 homes at one time to help us catch up on some of our backlog. And that's going to be a statewide initiative. Right now, we're piloting that program in Detroit, and that's all on Medicaid sponsored homes. And then we're going to, if that works out well, which it is now currently working out quite well, we're going to then start piloting that program into different cities. Flint is one of those cities that is on the list. The Get Ahead of Lead program, as I just spoke about, this is basically the rundown of that. So free education, plumbing assessments, lead reducing filter with replacement cartridges, and a free faucet replacement at the single highest consumption point in the house. This right here is basically our before and after of a house that we remediated in the city. As you can see, we put new windows, new siding, new door. This is just the outside. The inside received quite a bit more work as well. But this is kind of what you get when you apply the Lead Safe Home program, and we're able to use our Medicaid dollars to remediate lead.
So these are such amazing resources, and I want to pull everyone together for a few minutes, and I want to be thoughtful because we've got Steve Vandersma and some really great folks to talk about their Appathon. But if for like a couple minutes, I could bring, if Dr. Taylor's still here, and Imani, thank you too, and everyone who kind of talked today. We started with why this is so important, why kids are at risk specifically, and all of that makes sense in my head. And it strikes me that one of all of our goals is just getting the word out. So a big thank you and almost like a round of applause, a virtual clap for all of you, for all of the work you're doing, kind of getting the word out so people understand. It strikes me that as providers, we've got to be explaining this to people in their offices, in our offices when we see people, but then like connecting them with you all, right? Like I think, Imani, as I think about some of the resources you discussed, there's a lot of people who are in that income gap, right? There are people who don't quite meet those income standards who could be really helped with some of the programs that you described, right? And I wonder if there are things you would like to see more people in the community being involved in. I heard one thing was that we've got to get more people involved in some of the abatement work. So workforce is an issue, and super appreciate those resources from both Michael and you, Chad, to think about if there are people who can do this work, getting the awareness around getting them trained appropriately so we can get people doing this work. As I bring all of you together, I wonder if you have any last thing you want community people thinking about and all of us thinking about to sort of augment your work or highlight the work that you've done in communities.
I think, as maybe Heather and Janet maybe had said earlier, speaking around lead testing, I mean, lead testing is the point of entry, right? And so to make sure that lead testing is being completed, and whatever we can do, and I know universal testing is right around the corner. Those rules have not been promulgated yet. However, those are working their way through. And as soon as those rules are promulgated and the act is actually put into implementation, then potentially we will see a higher testing level. But until that time comes around, we still need to work on our level of testing and how many children are being tested in each community.
And for me, I would just suggest that people follow through with their applications.
Okay.
What we see a lot is people will get an application sent to them or maybe even brought to their home by Mr. Carpenter and never do anything with it. I follow up and they say, well, it's in a junk mail pile, or I don't know if I ever got it, but just follow through. That's the only way they can actually get the work done.
I would just piggyback off of Chad about testing. Testing is super important. We know that universal testing is going to be coming soon. And so the lead fund is, waiting for that, that flood of folks that will be tested that haven't necessarily been tested. But ultimately, our program is really for homeowners and property owners. And property owners for a very long time have been looking for some financial support when it comes to abatement, be it, all of their properties or just one at a time. And we really want to put the word out there that this is a resource for, homeowners and property owners to get in compliance, but also to create healthy homes for communities and people as well. So
shout out to all of you for all the wonderful work you're doing. I will highlight that need for screening again. As I evolved in my training, we screened in certain zip codes that were particularly specific and high risk. And I love that we're evolving to this place where we're being more thorough and thoughtful and expanding to universal screening. So thank you to all of you for your wonderful work that you do in the community. All right, we're going to pivot a little bit to my friend and colleague, Stephen Dersma. Thank you so much for being here to talk about your Appathon program. And you've got a friend with you. You've got Athena McKay, and shout out to your colleague who's doing this work too. So thank you both for your expertise today.
Thank you very much, Dr. EJ. We're delighted to be here. Ms. McKay is going to kick us off as long as everybody can see the slides here. Yeah, all right.
Yes, your slides are beautiful.
Thank you. We had help.
Oh, we can't hear you. Can you hear us? Okay. Can you say something again? No, we can't hear you.
Okay, we'll give you a second, Athena, and then I'll just take, we can just flip and I'll take the first half if you continue to have trouble. Okay. Me? Okay. All right. So we're going to switch. She was going to kick us off, but I'll do so instead. Thank you, everybody, for the time here. We're delighted to talk with you. We've been busy at work as part of the Miracle Center, which is the NIH-funded Center of Excellence that's been awarded to Michigan State University and its many community partners through this project. We are one of the projects within that center, and we have a very specific focus within the larger focus on maternal morbidity and mortality. So the team of our specific project is led by myself, by Athena McKay, who will be joining us in just a minute when she fixes her microphone, and Claire Margerson from the Department of Epidemiology at Michigan State University, along with the extremely able folks you see below there who are responsible for the beautiful slides we're showing right now. We couldn't do a thing with our community advisory board, which is made up of these individuals here. They represent mostly Flint residents, some rural residents. We'll tell you about that in just a moment, including Dr. Brian Tussler and Brittany Wright from the rural areas, as well as Nina Lewis, Jonathan McKay, Sherry Stapleton, Savannah Brown, Stephanie Lynn, and Sean Hart. And we're deeply grateful to all of them. We do this work because serious illness and unfortunately even death is all too common in the pregnant and during pregnancy and in the postpartum period. Serious pregnancy problems affect 1 in 50 mothers. So this is things like severe bleeding, high blood pressure, things that represent a significant risk to the mother as well as to the baby. We're also here because of racial disparities in these things. So it's just one example of this. Black mothers experience deaths in about 11.1 per 1 million live births. White mothers, that number is only 6.2. There are also significant disparities between urban, suburban, and rural areas, with rural areas facing additional risks because of the lack of services, those maternity care deserts that you might hear about. These are real concerns as well that we're trying to address. As far as what we can do, let me check in with my partner in crime, Athena, here to see if she's got her mic fixed.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, yes, we can.
Absolutely. All right, so I will turn it over to Athena.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you, EJ, for letting us present today. What we can do as a community is be involved. As the previous presenters shared, it's going to take a whole village of us to get together on one accord to be able to make these changes, reaching more people and sharing the approaches for better health, collecting that data, and also allowing our teams such as Steve, Claire, and I to make interventions to reduce the depression, anxiety, and substance abuse for moms to have healthy pregnancies. Next slide, Steve, please. What we've been able to do through NIH funding, as Steve mentioned, through the Miracle Center, we are looking to create a Michigan Mom app with the help of community. The aim of the app is to reduce pregnancy deaths and complications with focus of Black and rural mothers, not only for those mothers, but in pregnant persons, but their support persons, as well as providers and doctors. Next slide, please. What Steve and his team have been doing for the last couple of years is getting community members in one space, learning about the health issue. This particular one is maternal morbidity. And so getting their input and creating interventions that go into a larger app that goes out into these focused participants. Next slide. We were able to have an information session early May, where we currently have 6 or 7 teams that are presenting, creating an intervention to go into our larger app, the My Healthy Mom app. But we need your help. We know that your audience is some informed people who are very eager to be a part of change. And so we're asking you as a community to be a tester. There is a small stipend of $25 for you to review those interventions that are created by our contestants, and also looking at those, sharing with us your thoughts so that we can give the grand prize of $5,000 to that tester, to that team who's created an intervention for moms to have a healthy pregnancy. Next slide. You can go to our website that Dr. Heatherland has put in the chat, which is the www.pc-pramm.org. Learn more about the program, sign up, register. It's for generally almost everyone because we're all connected. Everybody has a mom out there, even though Father's Day is coming up. So we would really appreciate you being involved. And I believe that's our time. Thank you so much, and we look forward for you participating.
Oh, this is such wonderful information. Thank you so much. What a really great event and activity. And please go test out this the app and do the work. I'm put it on my list of things to do. And I'm going to gift the $25 back to you though. Please give it to the rest of your community partners. Shout out to all of you. Thank you to the Community Advisory Board. Thanks to all of you who shared your expertise today. Happy Father's Day to all of you out there, and happy Men's Health Month. Take care of yourselves. And a reminder about continuing education units for community health workers. Thank you so much to all of our presenters. Thank you to Steve Undersma and Athena McKay for that last presentation. And you all have a great weekend.
So everybody.